Hello, everyone. Hey, welcome back to another terrific Tuesday, or if you prefer, a tremendous Tuesday, here at the Veteran Lane YouTube channel. Veterans, AKB employees, everybody watching, so glad that you're here. Let's learn about VA disability on this educational platform to the point that one day we make the VA disability process so smooth between veterans and VA alike that you won't need me to sit in the middle. You won't need me for this fight. Let's make it that smooth. Let's make it that smooth. I want to make it that smooth. You know, I have so much experience from the VA. Experience as an attorney now representing veterans and a veteran myself, and I just enjoy sharing this for that sole purpose, all this knowledge. So let's get down to it. We're going to talk about effective dates and payment dates. Yes, veterans, you heard that right. Effective date and payment date, which means there's two different dates we're going to talk about that apply to your disability claims. We're going to talk about what each one is. What is an effective date? What is a payment date? We're going to talk about how they often are different, and we're going to talk about how these rules may affect your back pay and your future payments. So, what does that mean in short? Well, the effective date and the payment date are typically not the same date. So let's talk about this, effective date. Now, I'm not going to go into a lot of detail with the effective date in this video. We've done a video before on effective dates. Definitely some heavy lifting there. We talked about a series of different examples and different provisions of the law that address the various different effective dates that are possible. But keep in mind, in short, veterans, VA, the effective date is the date from which, VA determines that benefits are payable based upon not only those statutory provisions in that law, but based upon the evidence of your claim, veterans, the facts of your claim, the evidence. So, in short, without getting into all the regulatory guidelines for the effective dates, always remember that the starting point is the general rule underneath 38 CFR 3.400. Now, even though we have a series of different other provisions, we're going to stick with the idea that the general rule is the date of claim, or maybe even the intent to file date. That's going to be just for this conversation here, just to try to make things as easy and smooth as possible. So keep that in mind. General rule for this video is going to be date of claim or date maybe intent to file is filed. Now, let me give you an example. Let's just say a claim was filed on June 14th, 2023. Now, since we're using the idea of date of claim, I think you've already got that. Well, if that's the date the claim was filed, well, June 14th, 2023, right? Well, we have to take into consideration in this scenario that this is, for example, an original claim. None of those other provisions are in effect that we've talked about in the other video for effective dates. So the claim is filed. There's medical evidence that shows a condition existed before the filing of the claim, say in March 2023. This is going to be an effective date of June 14th, 2023, date of claim, as we've already mentioned. So it's pretty easy when we break it down that low. Unfortunately, it's not always that easy. But like I said, for today, let's make it that easy. So if that's an effective date, the date that the VA says your condition veterans that they are service connecting is effective, then what's the payment date? Well, the payment date is the date on which the VA begins paying monthly benefits based on that effective date. So I think the confusion here usually lies in the question isn't my payment date and effective date the same day? Ooh, it's not. It's actually not. And here's where we can look to understand that a little bit more. 38 CFR 3.31 will talk about the commencement of the period of payment. So, effective date general rule, 38 CFR 3.400, payment date rule, 38 CFR 3.31. And what we're going to find underneath the rules is that the payments start on the first day of the month following the effective date. So, keep in mind, veterans, VA pays in the arrears. There's no payments for the month in which the effective date falls, in the sense that there's no payment that day on that effective date. Now, we're going to talk about how, in reality, there is a payment really for the month that effective date falls. And that's because of the arrears and that the first of the month following that date. So here's an example. Let's say that effective date of June 14th, 2023 stands in our example. So if this is deemed the effective date, of service connection, veterans, that means your payment date underneath the rules is July 1, 2023, which is the first of the month following the effective date. Let's see if we can make more sense of this by comparing the two a little bit side by side, the effective date and the payment date. What we have to remember is the purpose of an effective date is to determine when entitlement starts. The payment date determines when the VA starts paying. So again, because they pay in the arrears, it's going to be the first of the month following, typically, from the date of the effective date, whatever the effective date may be. Now keep in mind the effective date is set by evidence and the rules that govern effective dates, such as date of claim. Now, payment date is not based upon the evidence. Payment date is completely a statutory rule. Again, we've said it multiple times, and I'll say it again because I want to make sure that we've gathered this so we can look at it later on. 38 CFR 3.400 is the general provisions of an effective date, and 38 CFR 3.31, well, that's your statutory provisions for your payment date. Now, we've shown the example again of June 14th of 2023, so something roughly in the middle of the month can be your effective date. Well, any day can be, but your payment date, veterans, will be that first of the month following that effective date, which in this example that we've used is July 1, 2023. Now, the effective date, though, it can be used to calculate your back pay period. The payment date is just going to set that first payment month. And we're going to get into that a little bit here. So let's do an example. Let's get into that. Let's get into a little bit of that back pay portion here. So first, to understand the back pay, we've got to identify the effective date from the rating decision. So you can do this in a few different ways. Usually, veterans, you get that notification letter that will discuss that. It'll also show the payment dates for you as well, broken down. If you go through the enclosures on that letter and you find that spot that's got the VA seal on top, you can see the decisions that are made. The ones that are granted are going to give you a percentage, and they're going to say effective, whatever date was assigned. So that's a couple of different ways you can find that effective date. Now, once you've got that effective date figured out, what you may want to do is also determine the effective date of any overall evaluation. So the back pay calculation gets a little bit trickier when we talk about the overall. So let's just start with the idea that this is your first claim, veterans, never filed before, and this is how we're going to figure out the back pay or the retro payment. We've identified the effective date. Let's say we've identified the effective date as September 12th, 2022. Well, now we're going to shift forward to the first day, because that's our payment date, first day of the month of October 1, 2022 in this example. Now, let's say it took the VA almost a couple years to render this decision, veterans. Now, not quite as common anymore, but still possible. VA issues their decision on June 2024. So we have to take that date into consideration too when we look at what your payment date is and your effective date. So your effective date is September 12th, 2022. We move forward to the first of the month, which is October 1, 2022. Now you're going to get paid for back payments all the way from October through June. So you'll do the calculation of October through June to determine what your back payment is. So let's say you got 50% for your PTSD veterans. Well, you can look up the charts of what those payments are on the va.gov website. And you're going to see what your payment is. And you can say, okay, every month during 2022, from October 1 until the COLA change, cost of living change, it was this amount. So you add all that together. Now you're going to take and you're going to say 2023, the 50% line was this monetary amount. And I apologize for not having that in front of me right now and memorizing those. But Then you can take that whole year up until, again, the change in 2024 for the cost of living. And then you're going to add in all the way from the new year of 2024 up and through June 2024. And then you add them all together. I'm hoping that didn't sound very complicated. I wish I had a better setup here to give you like the write everything down and so forth. And one day I will. I promise one day I will, as I continue to figure all this stuff out. Unfortunately, I'm an attorney and not a news broadcaster, so I'm learning how the cameras and everything work. All right, bad joke. I got it. So I want you to keep in mind here, veterans and VA should know all this too, is that there are two dates. There are two dates for disability claim. It's the effective date, which is going to be based upon, again, evidence and the statutory regulation that applies to the fact sales case, that your case, veterans. It can be different in so many different scenarios. But the idea is if we take the concept that the effective date is one thing, it's in the month of, say, either June or September from our two examples, we're always going to go to the first of the month following to figure out that payment date. So that's why you're usually going to see veterans that the effective date for your condition is one date and the date you actually get paid is a different date. Now, keep in mind, it's not that you're not getting paid for the time where the effective date starts, because the VA's payment date is in the arrears. So your first payment will be that first of the month following, but it's really paying you for the past. And then it keeps working that way all the way down. Afterwards, when all that's calculated and figured out, you're going to receive that back payment check, veterans, and minus any other withholdings and all that. And then from there, you'll start receiving the first of the month following. So in our example where October 2022 through June 2024 was figured out, you'll receive a payment in July 1 of 2024 in our example, and then it's just going to keep paying first of the month there, because that July payment is actually paying you for the month of June, where when we stopped in June, we were actually paying you back towards the months prior. All right. So that's effective dates and payment dates. That's the general differences between the two. So veterans, understand that when you see those terms and when you see different dates on your decisions. This is what's happening here. We have a statutory rule for payment date. We have statutory rules for effective date, plus evidence that addresses when the effective date can be established. But they are different. One's to determine when the disability starts, one's to determine when your payday starts. With that, ladies and gentlemen, I appreciate your time watching the video. If you have any questions from this video, let me know. I'll try to clear it up as much as I can. Some of these topics do get very complex, and I do work to make them as clear as I can. I know if you got to rewind and go back and watch them again, please do. I try not to be too unclear, but there's a lot moving up here, and there's a lot. So anyhow, with that, don't forget, I'm always here if veterans, if you're looking for some assistance. If you've been denied recently by the VA, you don't have a representative, then I would recommend getting a representative. Unfortunately, VA, this is going to be against you, but we do see quite a few errors, especially with the pushing of the claims this year and the goals to push claims as fast as they can. There has been some really egregious errors, I will say, from what I've seen. So veterans, VA will make errors. They're a very big, complex organization. I would like to believe that they still do have your best interest there to get you the benefits you're entitled to, but because of the size of the organization and a lot of logistics, these mistakes are going to happen. So my point here is if you don't have a representative, I would highly recommend one. And if you would like, veteranline.com is where you can find my calendar to schedule some time. We can do a phone call. We can do in person if you're in the Arizona area by surprise, near the Northwest VA clinic over here. Our office is in that plaza. Or if your disability has the need or requirement of a virtual meeting, I'm happy to set one of those up for you as well. I'm still working on that revamp of the website so we can get those better hashed out, so you can click on those individually. But for now, if you do go to the website, and you click on that note that's set for a phone call. But if you would prefer in person or anything else, please just put that in the description there. We'll do our best to catch that and be as flexible as we can to have that conversation with you, to do that, be a case evaluation, to do that consult, see how we can help you moving forward, or maybe even guide you into a better direction with somebody who can help you. So with that, thank you again, everybody. I appreciate your time. Let's learn some more. I do still have to do a part 2 of TBI. I realize that was probably pretty dry and not as good as everybody was probably expecting, but we're going to do a much deeper dive in that one. But before I do, I think I'm also going to put a video out before that kind of talks about the code of federal regulations in part 4, that scheduler, that rating scheduler that's out there, that rating schedule. So many ways of saying the same thing around here. Anyhow, I just want to give you an idea of a heads up of what's to come, so you can kind of look forward to those videos as well. Anyhow, enough of me. If you already haven't shut me off, what are you doing here? Go enjoy the rest of your Tuesday. I'll catch you next week. Have a wonderful day.